well. I'm going to go over some of the material from the notes based on the questions and requests for clarifications that you sent in. I might not get every single question everyone asks. Some of you ask some pretty deep questions that go beyond the scope of the course, but I will do my best. Okay, so first I want to review the cell theory. So there are 3 parts to the cell theory. First, all living organisms are composed of 1 or more cells. Second, these cells are the basic units of life. And third, these cells come from pre-existing cells. So those are the 3 components of the cell theory. Now, there's a lot of variety in the cells. So there are 3 domains. 2 of them are prokaryotes, bacteria and archaea. This should be review from last week. And then there's eukarya. The archaea and the bacteria are the prokaryotic cells. That means they lack membrane-bound organelles. However, they are different from each other. In fact, those 2 prokaryotes are so different from each other that there's a domain or 2 domains for them. That's how different they are. The eukaryotes, those all have membrane-bound organelles. Okay, so when the table that I give you with differences between prokaryotes and eukaryotes in your notes is really, for the most part, contrasting eukaryotes from the prokaryotes of domain archaea. And some of those same things that I put down for the prokaryotes bacteria also are also relevant or true of the domain archaea, but not all of them. So that's what I want to do first. So we've got prokaryotes, you can use a K or a C, and eukaryotes. Whoops. And the organisms, prokaryotes are in the domains bacteria and archaea, whereas the eukaryotes are all eukaryota, which means we're talking about all the protists, all the fungi, all the plants, and all of the animals. Okay. Organization. I know you can't see this, can you? Organization. These are unicellular. I'm going to step back out of the way in a second. Or single-celled, and these are both unicellular and multicellular. Okay? So we might see some of the prokaryotes in chains, but each individual cell is an individual. Or in clumps even. The prokaryotes, many of the protists are unicellular, but they are eukaryotic cells. Okay? Then the fungi, plants, and animals, most of the fungi are multicellular. All of the plants are multicellular. And all of the animals are multicellular. Okay? Next, size of cells. Now, rather than giving you numbers to memorize, smaller and larger. So basically, the largest prokaryotic cell is about the same size as the smallest eukaryotic cell. All right? So there's a difference in size. Then there is, of course, the membrane-bound organelles. They are absent in the prokaryotes and present in the eukaryotes. Now, basically, then, if I ask you on the test to tell me differences between prokaryotes and eukaryotes, this membrane-bound organelles characteristic covers the nucleus, the Golgi, the endoplasmic reticulum, the mitochondria, the chloroplast. So you can't double or triple dip into it and say, prokaryotes, no nucleus, eukaryotes, nucleus. Prokaryotes, no Golgi, eukaryotes, Golgi. You cannot do that. That is all in one category. Now, someone asked about vacuoles in prokaryotes. Prokaryotes do not have vacuoles. Prokaryotes will have areas without membranes around them where nutrients or other substances are concentrated. They have an area where the chromosome exists, called the nucleoid, but they do not have membranes around them. All right, ribosomes. These are smaller and larger. So they both have ribosomes. Ribosomes are not membrane-bound organelles. Ribosomes are made up chemically of proteins and ribosomal RNA. They don't have a membrane around them. They have two subunits to them. But the subunits are smaller in the ribosomes than they are in the prokaryotes than they are in the eukaryotes, making then the ribosomes smaller in the prokaryotes and larger in the eukaryotes. Someone asked, do the larger ribosomes work better? No. They work the same. They are the sites of protein synthesis. It's just that a lot of the ribosomes of eukaryotes are stuck to or associated with what we call rough endoplasmic reticulum. I will get to that in a second video, or third. Okay, so then we have the DNA. Circular and linear. What do I mean by circular? Literally like a rubber band. The chromosome is attached. So it goes around in a circle, or a bracelet, or this. It is circular or roundish. Whereas the chromosomes of eukaryotes are linear. They're more like a pencil. They don't come around and connect. So someone had asked about that, so I wanted to make sure that I made that clear. Now, how many differences do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are others. There are others like types of, oh goodness, something else. Anyway, there are others. But this is enough for you. If you end up taking microbiology, you will most likely look at a couple of other differences. If you end up taking a majors level cell biology in the future, you may look at many more, or not many more, but several more differences between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. But for us, this is ample. Oh, while I have this here, I want to talk about evolution. Just a little bit. So the prokaryotes were the first living organisms. And so there were no membrane-bound organelles. And that begs the question then, where did the eukaryotes come from? And we've got really good evidence. So it's a theory. There are actually two that are not conflicting. They go together. So that mitochondria came from one bacterium engulfing another one, and that was aerobic or able to use oxygen to make ATP. We'll get to that next week. But that engulfed that bacterium, did not eat it, and over time that bacterium that was inside became part of the cell, and now we see as mitochondria. Okay? And there's good evidence suggesting that that is so. Then, and we call that endosymbiosis. Another endosymbiotic event occurred in photosynthetic organisms. So they ate two kinds of bacteria. The ones that were heterotrophic and aerobic, using oxygen, so that made their mitochondria, and then those that were photosynthetic, because there are photosynthetic bacteria or prokaryotes. So they engulf those as well. So they have chloroplast and mitochondria. So that tells us where two of the organelles came from. The others came from more and more organized enfoldings of the cell or plasma membrane. So if you look at the endoplasmic reticulum, that makes sense. It just started doing this and making endoplasmic reticulum. So enfolded and then there's the nucleus that would have come from that, the Golgi from that enfolding. Okay, so that, again, two theories, evidence, but not conflicting because they describe the origin of the different types of cells. Okay, I think that is good. Oh, and just one other thing, viruses. It is easy to assume that viruses predate cells because they don't have everything that cells have, but actually the evidence suggests just the other way, that some cells lost components and became viruses. And that would explain why some viruses have DNA and some viruses have RNA, but no viruses have both. Okay, let me erase this and talk about the fluid mosaic. Where did I put my eraser? Oh, Seth, where did I put my eraser? Nope. I have an eraser somewhere. I just don't know where I set it. Oh, my husband pointed at it. So the rest of this video will be about the cell membrane. Gotta get that to sit here. So the fluid mosaic model. It's not liquid, but the phospholipids are flexible and move. If you look at that video that I linked in the notes, you can see that. So they literally move around in that cell membrane, or that part. And the phospholipids make up most of the cell membrane. So that's the fluid part. So what is the mosaic? For those of you who are familiar with art, mosaic pieces of art have multiple media in them. It's not just paint, for example. It might be paint and clay or something like that. Well, that's the same thing for mosaic with the cell membrane. The mosaic is there are multiple parts. I hope that clears that up for any of you who were having a little bit of trouble with the fluid mosaic. All right. Then I want to talk about transport a little bit, and I want to focus on the 4 methods of transport that are going to be important for your quiz. First, we're going to have simple diffusion. And this is movement across